Hey, you are listening to Oh Crap Parenting with me, your host, Jamie Glowacki. This is a podcast for conscious parents who drop the F-bomb a lot. So today, I want to piggyback off of Peter Gray's interview. I hope you enjoyed that. I was so fangirling. I could barely breathe. It's like when you meet one of your gurus. I also want to apologize. The last few podcasts, I had my mic kind of directly against my clothing, and it was probably pretty annoying to listen to. And my sound editor did her very, very best to fix it. But even listening back, I was like, geez, I'm so sorry. So if you're watching this, you can see I have to put my headset kind of tucked away so it doesn't touch anything. And I forgot to do that because I talk with my hands, even on a podcast, and I rip wires. I don't know, a couple of podcasts ago, I crossed my legs and ripped a bunch of wires out and my laptop fell. And yeah, it's not easy being me, as my son often says. So let's start today with a little nugget that I love. This is not something I heard recently, but I probably have mentioned it before, and I so much love it. Oftentimes we say, I have to, right? I have to work out, or I have to wake up when the kids wake up. I have to do this. And when we frame it like I have to, it can feel so suffocating, right? And this has to do a lot with the topic of today's podcast. When we reframe I have to I get to, it makes a world of difference. I get to wake up with my kids. I get to wake up early and spend some time by myself. I get to work out. I always feel the miraculous power of my body when I reframe, I get to work out. And I've talked before, if you haven't listened to my episode on my spiritual awakening during a Spartan race, go ahead and listen to that. But I get to. There are people who don't. There are people who can't. There are people whose bodies are broken, who have chronic disease or chronic pain and can't. And I can, and I get to. So I just want to point that out because I think parenting can get weighed down with the have tos, and it can feel, again, like suffocating. And I once worked with a dad who was he was pretty depressed, and he was just feeling buried under the dad weight of protector and provider. And even though his wife worked, he felt heavy. And he was like, but I have to. And I said, no, you don't. You don't have to. You could make another choice. Not a choice I would like you to make, but plenty of dads walk out. Plenty of dads leave. Plenty of men don't do what they should do in a marriage or in fatherhood. And he was like, yeah, but I couldn't do that. And I was like, no, that you're not that guy, but there are always choices, and you get to show up this way. And he was like, it took him a couple of weeks, we met weekly. And then he was like, you know what? You're right. I get to do this. And it just takes some weight off of you. And so that's the little nugget today. So whenever you find yourself mired under the I have to, right? Because we do have to do so many hard things, so many hard things for our kids, so many hard things in life, so many hard things. Sometimes I worry about my mom and her medical fragility. I'm like, oh, I have to go to my mom's. And I'm like, no, I get to go to my mom's. My mom's still alive. She can still communicate. She's still a source of advice and love and laughter, right? And some people don't have their mom, so I get to. But this has to do a lot with today's podcast. So Peter Gray's book, Free to Learn, it's such a good book. You guys really should read it. Even though he's very, very enthusiastic about self-directed education in general, it's not just homeschooling or self-directed learning. It's really how to play more, how to appreciate play, both as children and as adults, and how great it is for our kids. And there were quite a few concepts we didn't get to. I could have talked to him for hours. There was a concept that we didn't have time to get into, and that is external versus internal locus of control. And so this is how much autonomy you feel you have in your life. And it applies to kids and to adults both. And it's funny because if you do a Google search on it, there's pages and pages of how this has to do with like finding the job you want, and how you're marketable for jobs. And I thought it was really interesting because I had only really heard of it through Peter Gray and through, the childhood lens. And then I started to see it through an adult lens. And it's really interesting. So external locus of control really has to do with, you feel like all the control is out of your hands. Everything to do with your life is luck. It's fate. It's, maybe somebody else has more, quote unquote privilege than you. And you believe that these things control the outcomes in your life and it will drive your actions. Whereas an internal locus of control, you feel like you have more power in your own life. You believe you have personal agency over your own life. And because of this, you tend to have more self-efficacy. So with the internal locus of control, you have a greater degree of self-control, self-motivation, and then an influence that we have on others in our environment. And this means we're more likely to be more intelligently curious and active in regards to our own learning, right? Whereas external is the opposite. It's everything happens because of lack or lack thereof. It happens because of others, or it just happens because you're not, you're an unlucky person. And I snapped a picture of a list I found online to give you a comparison. So internal locus of control people, when they have a strong internal locus of control, they believe that what they've achieved is due to their hard work. They tend to take responsibility for their actions. They don't necessarily believe in fate, and they aren't usually influenced by others' opinions. And they tend to be driven and motivated to achieve something. Whereas the external locus of control credits luck or timing when they manage to achieve something. They put the responsibility on forces outside of their control. They feel like they can't change a situation because, this is just how it is. They feel hopeless when confronted with a difficult situation. And they believe they'll achieve what they want if the timing is right or the stars are aligned. And I thought that was really interesting because obviously this plays into like self-reliancy, feeling good, right? Like it goes into how we know now we don't praise outcomes, we praise effort, right? Because it's really easy to feel like, oh my God, just everything happens. I'm the unluckiest person, right? And I think we all have some of both. So I don't think somebody's completely, they just have an internal locus of control and then they don't have any external. And there are certainly things out of our control, right? There are definitely things, car accidents. There's so many things that aren't in our control, but there are a great deal that are in our control that we often give up our power. So as I was kind of ruminating on this, I was walking with Maverick, talking to myself like I do. And I was like, this internal, external locus of control. I was thinking about, I have a text thread with my friends, and it was really funny because this one day, everybody was just bitching. And there's a lot of bitching, right? There's a lot of bitching about jobs and about careers and life circumstances. And I found myself not replying in the text thread. And I wasn't annoyed. I was more like observing. And I was like, I have nothing to say. And then they asked me to go out for a hike on Sunday. And I usually take Sundays off. It's like my sacred day. I try not to even turn on my phone except for a podcast maybe. And I've been working on Sundays because it's snowboard season and we like to snowboard midweek. So I get up at 3:00 on Sunday morning so I can work. And it's a beautiful thing. I work usually more than your average person. I definitely work more than 40 hours per week, but I get to choose my schedule because of my job. And I can record this podcast at 3 a.m. And oftentimes that is the best time to record this podcast, right? I can write out a social media calendar. I can, fix things in my courses. This past couple of weeks, as you may or may not know, my website was down for 9 freaking days. So external locus of control. I could not do anything about that. We did everything we could behind the scenes. And at some point I was like, okay, I've got to go snowboarding. I can't, like Bluehost was sort of holding my website captive. And so knowing that I think is a good thing too, right? Isn't that the serenity prayer, right? God grant me the wisdom, to accept the things I can, change the things I can, accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? So at some point I had to throw up my hands and accept that this was an external locus of control. But what was funny is I realized I am a happy person. Like I am a happy person. And I know this isn't like everybody's job can't be like this, but I started to really trace it back to, wow, I have a really strong internal locus of control. I do think a lot of my success has been my hard work. Do I think I've been lucky? Yes, I think there is timing and there is luck, but luck is said when hard work meets opportunity, right? Was I lucky an agent came across Oh Crap potty training and thought it was the bee's knees? Yes, that was luck. But was the book out there for people to make it the bee's knees? Yes, that was me, right? And so I think my internal locus of control is very strong. Look at the way I eat and train. I am doing this so that I age well, right? I am doing this to prevent some illnesses, to knowing my family's medical history. I'm eating a certain way to avoid the autoimmune stuff that runs in my family. So this gives me a very strong locus of control, whereas a lot of people, I think, we've talked about this in the How I Eat and Train, I think it's episode 94, is, a lot of people just assume, oh, I have skin issues. Oh, I have, IBS. I have these things happen to me, when actually there's so much you can do about it. And so for whatever reason, I have an internal locus of control. Whether or not that matters, I don't know. But it does make me a happier person than thinking the world is against me, or the universe or God or whatever you believe in is not providing for you. And I think it makes for a happier existence all around. And it does make me work harder. I always think I just probably need to work this a little harder. And then I can also say, yeah, I can't work this any harder. I'm just going to go snowboarding, right? And so recognizing that, like, wow, even though I work a shit ton of hours, I love my job. I also get direct feedback from you guys on, thank yous, or you missed the mark on that, or questions. And the thank yous I get from my job are so incredibly gratifying, right? So I don't work as a cog in a machine. And I think that can be detrimental, right? If you have a cubicle job and you are just one small piece and you can't see the end of what you produce, there's a book. Oh, shoot. I can't think of the name of it. It might be like Dumb Jobs or something like that. Shoot. I'll try to remember it. If I can remember it, I'll put it in the show notes. But basically, a lot of the discontent and anxiety and depression of our youth is because they have lost purpose. We have a lot of jobs that don't do much of anything but paper push. And so there's this like real gaping hole of meaningful work. Like, like you think of a carpenter who works and produces something, produces a dining room table for a big family and the family eats on it. Like that's a joyful production, right? And sometimes when we're in a job where we're just in meetings all day and paper pushing and we can't really see the end result, you might lose purpose, right? So I would say as parents, we generally have a guiding purpose, which is our kids, right? So we do a lot of shitty things because our purpose switched from maybe that is what we created, right? We created a beautiful thing. And so that becomes our purpose. But anyway, this text thread with my friends just got me thinking about that and how like, wow, the ability to say, I can get up at 3:00 on Sunday morning. I get to, so I can finish my work so I can go snowboarding on Tuesday. That is intensely joyful for me, right? And so it parlays into adult life. But what I really wanted to talk about, it was how it parlays into our kids' lives, because the stats are staggering right now, guys. It is so, the stats on our kids are just horrific. I did not know. I'm going to link the article. I don't think I linked it in Peter Gray's show notes, but let me write it down right now so I can. He sent me an article that he wrote for Psychology Today that had a lot of the statistics. And I think suicide has gone up like 400% in kids like 9 to 14. So our kids are really suffering. And I think we have to put everything into the mix. Do I think it's a corrupted food supply? Absolutely. I think food has so much to do with it. I think movement has to do with it. I think rushed academics, I think organized sports instead of free play have to do with it. But I also think, as Peter Gray and I talked about, is these skewing of numbers and safety has made us so helicopter-ish with our kids that they have no internal locus of control. And when you just think things happen, you have no control, you can't advocate for yourself, you don't make a difference because shit's just going to happen. When you think that, and that is directly tied to helicopter parenting and over safety and non-risk taking, right? We end up with kids whose behavior's off the wall, with kids who can't manage. The lower end of Gen Z is a little crazy, and Gen Alpha is coming up, and I have hope for Gen Alpha, but not if we keep crushing them with controlling every aspect of their lives. I have done I think it was, maybe it's this week's potty training podcast on Okra Potty Training, my other podcast. There's a large amount of parents who are stunned that their 3-year-old could potentially dress themselves, stunned that they might have this capability. There are regularly parents keeping kids in cribs at 4 years old because they can't handle the responsibility. And this is mind-boggling, because then we turn around and expect them to be self-sufficient. We want them to be big kids. We want them to move to the next phase. We want them to take ownership of their own life, of their clothes, of cleanliness, of household chores. But if we continually put them outside of the circle of family life and what we expect from them, right? And largely this has to do with family chores. Then we teach them that they're not part of the circle. And then we turn around when they're 10 and we're like, you have to do the dishes now. And they're like, no, sir, I watch YouTube Kids when you do the dishes, right? Like we don't give them that internal locus of control. So let's talk about how we can do that, because I think it's a very fixable thing. And I think we can really, there's things we can do to help our kids develop that internal locus of control. And definitely, if we could all just leave them the fuck alone, like if we could leave them alone, and Peter Gray and I talked a lot about this, if you can let them play and handle their own bullshit, you will be shocked at what comes out. But what happens, and I know because it happened in my circles of parents when Pascal was little, and it's only gotten worse over the last, 15 years, is parents hover and they jump in at every opportunity. Now, do I think bullying's okay? Absolutely not. Do I think teasing's going to happen? There's always a line that gets crossed. Always may need intervention. But largely speaking, we are intervening way too soon. Now, when they're little, when they're 2, yes, of course, we're going to have to be on them a little bit more, right? Particularly if they're only playing with 2-year-olds. So this is also a pull for mixed age groups when you can. Let the bigger kids take control. Let the little kids learn from the big kids. But if we are constantly rushing in and just trying to fix it for our kids, we are not doing them any favor. They don't learn that they can have control over the situation. One of the best gifts we can give our kids is how to advocate for themselves. So even if you do have to intervene, make it about facilitation. Okay, guys, you need to work this out. We're here if you need help, but let the kids speak for themselves. And I have shared many times on this podcast in 2 particular instances where close friends had something to say about Pascal and wanted me to take care of it with Pascal. And these kids were like 8. And I was like, no, let's get the kids together and let them advocate for themselves. We can monitor and we can facilitate the conversation for sure. But the kids have to say it they need to hear it from each other. And in 2 instances, both moms who talked a really good game about kids advocating for themselves said, no, my kid won't do that. My kid can't do that. You need to reprimand Pascal. And I was like, all right, it's just not as effective. I mean, I can reprimand him till the cows come home, but when you have it out with your friend, that's a better scenario. So be cautious, because I feel like in theory, we all know what needs to be done. And then in reality, we just get so fucking mama bear about it. We just feel like we've got to constantly help them, but we don't help them. We do it for them. And advocating for yourself is huge, just huge, especially as these kids are coming up, because with all the digital interaction, oof, I got to tell you, it was about 5 years ago when I made Pascal order his own pizza on the phone, and he, like, I thought he was going to die of a heart attack. So like ordering a pizza. And so it's, they're not used to talking on their phone. They're not used to, communicating with adults. So let your kid order in restaurants. Don't order for them. Let them, if they've got something to say and they're unsure, offer to facilitate, offer to be on hand, but say, you can do this. You have the courage to stand up to your friend, or to say what's on your mind, or to ask your teacher for what you need. We want to really encourage that. We want them to feel like they're in control and they can advocate for themselves. The next thing, I see this a lot. I hear this a lot. Oh, I'm a worry wart. I'm a control freak. I'm a helicopter mom. I just am. I know. It's ridiculous. I am. Guys, that's not fucking cute. Stop doing that. That's a flaw in your parenting system. It means you have anxiety and you need to fix that because you're just giving it to your kid. Our kids pick up on everything. So if you are anxious, if you are a control freak, your kid's going to get that. First of all, they're going to be the same because they're learning it, right? Like, we're always unconsciously learning. But the other thing is, I am getting a little, this is kind of come in a big wave. As parenting struggles do, it's weird. I won't hear of anything, and then all of a sudden it'll be like a deluge, a tsunami of this. And I'm just hearing a lot of parents be like, that's just how I am. That's just how I am. I have a bad temper. I'm quick to anger. No, I'm just a yeller. I'm from an Italian family. No. These are all not cool. It's not cool. It's not cool to be like, oh yeah, I'm just an alcoholic. No, fix that. Right? Like, I've had friends say that. Oh, I'm just an addict. Okay, do something about that. Like, so notice that that's not a cute thing. Helicopter parenting and snowplow parenting. So helicopter parenting is like the hovering. You're hovering right over your kid, watching everything. And this is particularly true if you have a single kid, right? Because our single kids take the brunt of all our parenting, at least with other kids. With other siblings, it's like dispersed, right? And you get too chaotic, you get too crowded to care at certain points. But singletons are like, we're on it like white on rice. But we're watching every move. Where, I was working with a family this week, and they're like, yeah, well, he's our only, and we're totally like, say please, no, you didn't do that, and you got to do this. Like, they're on them. And the kid was having a little trouble, like, kicking and being a little volatile. And I was like, yeah, I'd kick you too if you were like that, if you were down my throat like that. So we want to let the kids have space, and it really is, it goes back to that pick your battles, is please and thank you the end of the world? Not usually, right? We want to pick our battles when we're dealing with some behavior issues. But again, then the snowplow parent is the one who clears the way, right? The parent who wants no friction for the child. And so they snowplow the path so the kid has a clear path, but the kid never learns self-reliance, any grit. The child learns that, like, everybody makes it nice for me and I just go along happily. And that can seem nice, but it's not. It's not nice. We as humans need to overcome things. That's what gives us self-esteem. That's what gives us pride and self-mastery, right? So we don't want things easy. I had mentioned over New Year's, I had a wedding to go to in the Dominican Republic, and it was this all-inclusive resort. And we got a deal because it was like the wedding block, and I have never been on an all-inclusive vacation. I tend to go for like a grittier vacation. And we were there for 5 days, and by day 4, I was like, this isn't even fun anymore because it was so easy, like all inclusive, like there was no friction. Everything was done for us. Everything, there was just no friction. And it was nice. Like the first day I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. The second day I was like, oh, this is great. The third day I was like, okay, I can, go get my own hamburger. So, I just realized me personally, friction, these obstacle course races, training hardcore, cold plunging sauna, all the things I do that I tell you guys about, those create friction. And it allows me to be proud of myself on a daily basis, doing things that I might not want to do, doing things that I get to do that I don't have to do. And I think our kids, we need friction. Humans love to overcome. We love to overcome. So when you think of the pride when you master something, and think of the look on your kid's face when they when they finally walked, or when they potty trained and they were like, I did it. Yeah, you did. Think of the kid who studied really hard and got an A on that test. I did it. That feels good. What about those kids who cheated to get into college? You think they have any pride? No, they're entitled little fucks because their parents paid for them to get into Ivy League colleges, right? You know when you're cheating the system, you know when you're copping out, and that doesn't feel bad. I mean, that doesn't feel good. That feels bad inside. Same thing goes for our little ones. When we deprive them of the opportunities to do it themselves, to experience struggle, to get through to the other side, that is powerful shit. And you're going to get a self-reliant kid. You're going to get a kid who wants to help and wants to struggle because they know what's on the other side of that. So again, if you're snow plowing, if you're making it easy, and guys, I get it. I struggled in my childhood and I want to make my child's life as easy as possible, because I don't want him to struggle, right? But this is how we get fucked up. This is how generations go, right? It's, there's a saying, a Stoic saying, hard men make soft times make soft men. Soft men make hard times make hard men. And so we had probably hardness after the Depression, right? And then the boomers came, and then my generation came, and then now we're making it too easy, and we're going to have this super soft generation, right? And that's going to create trouble for the whole society. They're going to be the soft men, right? And I don't mean men, I mean humans, right? So don't snowplow, don't helicopter. And if you don't take pride in these attributes, yes, they're a parenting flaw, and we have to fix them, and we have to recognize that we have anxiety. On that note, I'm actually going to attach a link to my favorite company for CBD. If you find that you are anxious, helicoptering, a little fluttery, can't access your parasympathetic nervous system, I cannot recommend CBD enough. I will probably be doing a whole podcast on it, but I used to think it had to do with THC. It is made from the marijuana plant, but there's no THC in it. There's no psychoactive components, and CBD has changed my life as well as everyone I know. And they do make kids formulas now. And so I have been recommending it to clients when their kids are kind of out of control, and just to lower the intensity a little while we're working on all these skills and mastery. And so I will link you to that, because I just think it's a phenomenal tool to have in your toolbox. Especially, I know as a parent, we're all anxious. It's just an anxious world. And so I think it's a great way while you're working on your issues to just lower the intensity of everything. All right, let's move on. What can you do for this internal locus of control? Definitely encourage responsibility for everyday living. Okay, so this has to do with all of the household chores. And again, Peter Gray and I talked a bit about this, but this is so vital and so important. If you don't have your kids help with chores right away, they won't want to do it when they're older. I don't think kids should be paid for chores. Everybody contributes to the household. Everybody contributes to the cleanliness. And we can't have kids just thinking they get set aside. And again, this happens. We had talked about this with Peter. This happens because parents are busy. They get home, they're in a rush. They have to prepare dinner, bedtime, everything. And so the kids get put down. It's just so much easier to put them in front of Paw Patrol, right? I get it, because then you can do everything. But if you make the whole night the activity of dinner, or make the whole night of cooking or baking or cleaning or whatever it is, and give your child specific things to do, this will pay off and it will give them a sense of responsibility. One of the best things you can do, and I'm continually sharing these on my stories on Instagram, is the set up these kitchens. They have these fabulous kitchens now for kids, not play kitchens. You set up, there's water in the sink. One woman today, I posted on my stories, this 2-year-old is making pancakes. She makes picture recipes. And he had a little hot plate and he made his own pancakes at his set up kitchen. So rather than buy this crazy, like little Tykes pretend kitchen with pretend burners, you could literally have your kid learn kitchen skills in their own little kitchen. If you search for like Montessori, and not invented this, but Montessori brought this to the public, but you can find this anywhere and you can find it all over Instagram. Are these, tiny little hanger closets with just a few items of clothes so your children can go and access their own clothes? Can they access their own hairbrush? Set up a mini little everything in their room or in the bathroom so it's toddler friendly and they can take care of themselves. And you're going to be shocked at what these kids can do. Shocked. And I'm regularly hearing about 12-year-olds who can't do the stuff that some of these 2-year-olds are doing. So encourage that and make your space really user-friendly so your toddler can reach everything. And if you think about it, this is kind of asinine. We've got it so backwards. We buy like fake food and fake stuff for these fake little kitchens, or they play house or they play dress up with their dolls, and then we get them dressed in their room. At this age, helping you around the house is play. What do kids play? Kids play house. Kids play school, right? I would be amazed in kindergarten. Pascal and his friends would come home and they'd play school. I was like, y'all just got out of school, right? But it was them rewriting school. It was them working through what they wanted things to go different. It was fascinating. But kids love, how many times do your kids say, let's play house? You be the mommy, I'll be the baby. Dude, we could just do that. Like that's living, right? So think of the house as play and they're imitating you. And it's not taking anything away from their childhood, right? I hear this all the time. Well, let them be kids. They are being kids. They want to help, right? And if they're just going to go play fake food in the kitchen, why can't they play real food in the kitchen with you? It's not taking away their childhood. It's making them part of the environment. And that is what kids really want. Regular chores, just do regular chores. I really, unless you have 6 kids and you lose track of chores, don't do a chore chart. Don't give a sticker. Just you do chores. Make it part of daily living. People do this completely different, but the younger your child is, the more consistency they need. So perhaps you have a weekly family meeting and everybody picks a week chore for that meeting. And so you could have things laid out like who's doing what this week. That is a chart I approve of. I do not approve of behavior charts. Like you did your chore, here's a sticker. Check it off. Like you could make a grid and just get a check. That's it. We don't want to reward. We don't want to overpraise what we do for daily living, right? That leads to entitlement. So however you fashion it, but again, the smaller your kid is, the more they're going to need consistency. So it may be set the table. That's their job. Put the bowls out, put the glass out. It may be pour the water. Maybe that's a really great thing for them and they have a pitcher and they can pour everybody's water. But the more consistent you can be, the better off you will be. Pascal's chore always was clearing the table. And he just would automatically, I remember we went out to dinner at a friend's house and he was like 8 or 9 and we were done. He said, oh, that dinner was delicious. Thank you. And he got up and cleared everybody's plate. And the mom was like, how did you teach him to do that? I was like, this has been his chore like since he was little. So when you have a consistent chore for your little one, they will show up with pride. And of course, then we are, generally speaking, we're awesome about it, right? Like, thank you so much. You were so helpful. We don't say, good job. You set the table. Don't do that. We say, thank you. The table looks great. Dressing, picking up clothes, toys. This is kind of always a question that people, how do I get my kids? My kids won't help pick up the toys. This starts very young, very, very young. Even when they're babies crawling around, I'm picking up your toys here. Even when they're calling, oh, that's a red block. Can you bring that to mommy? We engage them in the cleaning and dressing. Let them dress themselves. And again, limited options are better. because a lot of kids, particularly little girls, have overwhelming closets. And so again, if you get these little, they're just like little open closets. I don't even know what they're called. It's like a little wardrobe almost, and everything is very reachable. And the whole Montessori idea is you put out just a couple of things so that the child doesn't get into overwhelm. They may just have like 2 options, because another thing I hear about is little girls particularly like melting down because they can't make a choice of what they want to wear. Any task that you want your child to do, any chore you're asking them to do, ask them if they have questions, ask them if they need help, and then trust. We have lost trust in our kids. We somehow are infantilizing them beyond teenage years, and it is crazy making. I happen to be friends with a lot of people right now who have kids between the ages of 11 and 13, and I am appalled at what these kids cannot do. So start young, build the skill, know that it's going to take time, right? Know that some of these things are going to be obviously repetitive over and over and over again, but we have to start trusting them to follow directions, trusting them that they'll make the right choice. Now, is it going to be one-off? No, you can't just explain a task to a 4-year-old who's never done anything for themselves and be like, okay, maybe your kid will start to wander. Maybe they won't do the task. It takes some, some putting rails on the system at first, but it will grow and grow and grow. And I think there's nothing better. Again, this counts as connection time. If you're doing laundry with your kid and you guys are laughing and fun, that's connection time. That's just as connecting as going to a playground together or, reading a story together. That one-on-one time still is connection. And so what better thing than to go slow? Maybe dinner takes an hour to get on the table and it takes a lot longer, but you're spending that time with your kid. That is so much awesome. That's so much more awesome, right? What I typically see is, dinner is feeling rushed. So the parents put the kids again, maybe watch a show. And I'm not disagreeing that screen time can be very valuable in certain situations, right? And then they prepare the dinner. Then they want the dinner to be the connection time, but the kid has no connection to the dinner, right? They have no connection to how it was prepared, how the table got set. They just get plopped down. And now you want to connect with them over dinner. And you see picky eating and screaming and sliding out of the chair, throwing food. When we engage them in everything, and then it starts to get better and better and better. And that makes dinner time better. And again, you've already started connecting in the kitchen. So I'm a big fan of chores and the kitchen. I just can't. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. Praise effort with specifics. We know this, right? Praise the effort, not the outcome. So, wow, you did, the table looks great. And I saw that you really struggled to get those plates out of the cupboard. Nice work. Praise the effort of everything, including schoolwork. Help them articulate the feeling of mastery. So when your child does master something, and I do this a lot in potty training because a lot of parents just say, I'm so proud of you. Who cares? You must be proud of yourself. When your child is beaming and has that feeling, help them articulate that. Wow, you look like your head is going to blow off. You're so happy. What's making you so happy? I did it. I worked hard. Let them start to articulate the feelings of mastery, even if you have to lead them with some words, because they're going to remember that feeling. Yeah. You have to stop with the constant. I've talked about this a lot lately. Cheerleading, empty cheerleading, encouragement, praise, all these things. You're not doing your kid any favor. They need to internalize what they've done or failed at. This is them and their cross to bear alone. Failure is a part of life. And, with the kids, I've talked about this recently, the kids who are melting down can't handle an iota of failure because we rush in to make it better. No, you did great. You tried really hard. There's times for that, of course, but there's also time, like every human has to live their own life. And so we can't continually feed our kids praise, encouragement, let them fail and let them sit with that. And then that might be like, yeah, it feels really crappy when you strike out. It does. Instead of just making it better, because then your child knows its faults, but they also don't get to experience that feeling if they're constantly, it's a fine line. Of course, you want kids to be like, all right, I gave it my best, we don't want them to mire in it, but it also, you have to experience that without people running into like over cheerlead and over encourage and praise. It ends up that we end up handling all their situations for them, and that's just not good either. And then, and then I talked about this, like constantly expecting, constantly going above the kid to the parent about the kid's behavior with your kid. So, I need to talk to you about your kid who did something to my kid. I think when kids have skirmishes, it's always best to handle it in the moment. I don't think it's best to walk away, then call the mom and have it out with her. I think it's better to have it in the moment. Kids are shits. There are going to be some kids that you'll have to divorce the family because you're like, I can't with that kid anymore. There's going to be kids that aren't reprimanded by their parents. There are going to be kids who just never get the message and are shitty to your kid. Your kid may be the one who's shitty to other kids. In those instances, though, I think it's always best to try to facilitate the kids managing it together, even if they're little. And again, we don't say sorry. We try to fix the situation. So even if your little one hit another kid, it was impulse control. I think it's best to say, let's go see if they need something. Can we give them a tissue for their crying? Let's make sure their head is okay because you bonked them. So we try to remedy the situation. And I always think that's better than calling the mom later and saying, well, today he was throwing sand, and don't do that. Like, really let the kids, teach your child to advocate for themselves, teach your child to use their voice, and not play into victimhood, not to be like, mommy, they did this thing, because this will parlay to college. We're seeing it. Mommy, my professor was mean to me. You can't have it. It's like these kids are getting very dependent on being a victim and being very dependent on you to solve things. So we want to start young with this, like letting them use their voice and letting them advocate for themselves. Again, they may need us kind of not hovering like helicopter, but in the background in case they need some help, right? Because facilitating hard conversations is a skill as well, and you may need to do that. But really, really, really try not to go over the child's pay grade to the mother, because it makes you the fixer of everything, and they know that, and then they get reliant on that. All right. Well, I had more to say about this than I thought. So as always, you guys, I super appreciate you listening, reviewing, and your questions. Love it all. If you were part of the clusterfuck that was my website being down, I totally apologize. And thank you for your patience. As always, rock on and have a beautiful day.
Okay, bye everyone. Just a reminder, if you need additional resources, I have Oh Crap Potty Training. I have Oh Crap, I Have a Toddler. Those books are available everywhere you want to find a book. You can also go to my website, jamieglowacki.com, where you can book private sessions with me, buy any of my courses. Those are really geared towards potty training help. And also I'm on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook anymore, and I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, jamie.glowacki, and I do a lot of lives and usually posting a lot of good information. So those are extra resources for you. And as always, rock on. Have an awesome day.